listening to FirstAmendmentRadio.com. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Well, I'm going to continue right away this morning, picking up where we left off yesterday in the book, A Woman Rides the Beast by Dave Hunt. And we're in chapter 6 of the book entitled A City on Seven Hills. And in this chapter, Dave Hunt shows us in inarguable terms that the Roman Catholic Church, that Vatican City, that the papacy is what is described in Revelation chapter 17, the woman riding the beast. What it describes is a union of the Roman Catholic Church with the governments of the world to fulfill its prophetic role as Antichrist in the world. And these are Protestant beliefs. These are the beliefs of the early Protestant reformers. Every single one of them to a man, without exception. It was the unanimous belief of the Protestant reformers that Revelation chapter 17 and 18 described nothing else but the Roman Catholic Church and the Roman Catholic Church system, the Old World Order and the New World Order. Now, one of the things that are described about this woman is that she's united with the beast. She controls the beast. She rides atop the beast representing the governments of the world. And now Dave Hunt is going to prove it. In this portion of the chapter, it's entitled, In Bed with the Rulers. He says, not only does Rome's Pope call himself the Vicar of Christ, but the church he heads claims to be the one true church and the bride of Christ. Christ's bride, whose hope is to join her bridegroom in heaven, is to have no earthly ambitions. Yet the Vatican is obsessed and has always been obsessed with earthly enterprise, as history proves. And in furtherance of these goals, it has been, exactly as John the Revelator saw in his vision, engaged in adulterous relationships with the kings of the earth. That fact is acknowledged even by Roman Catholic historians. Christ said to his disciples, quote, If ye were of the world would love his own. But because you are not of the world, but I have chosen you out of the world, therefore the world hateth you. John chapter 15, verse 19. The Roman Catholic Church, however, is very much of this world. Her popes have built an unrivaled worldwide empire of property, wealth, and influence. Nor is empire building an abandoned feature of the past. We've already seen that Vatican Council II clearly states that the Roman Catholic Church today still ceaselessly seeks to bring under its control all mankind and all their goods. Okay, and I will even add the most recent encyclical of Pope Benedict XVI, Caritas in Veritate, leaves no room for doubt, claiming that all private property has attached to it a prior social mortgage. And that simply means that all so-called private property has a lien on it, and that if there is someone who has need of property that you claim to be yours, that you paid for, if they have a need and you have these material goods in excess to your needs, then the one who has need has prior claim, a prior social mortgage. The papacy has legalized what the Bible, God's holy word, condemns as theft. So, as many are learning around the world, and I'll give you just one example, Many people are discovering that if one leaves one's house to go on a holiday or to go on vacation and returns from that vacation and finds his house already occupied by someone else, they can't evict them. They have to continue paying for the property, paying the taxes and the mortgage, but they cannot evict the squatters because the squatters had need. Therefore, they made the prior claim, the social mortgage on your property. Caritas and Veritate also spells out what is called subsidiarity. And subsidiarity is just a street-level organization that is going to go around house to house and assess all the property that you have, and whatever they determine is in excess of your needs, that it'll simply be taken from you and redistributed by the state. Now, many people are going to roll their eyes and say this just simply can't be so in this country, but you're going to see it. You know, you can doubt what I'm saying now, but eventually you'll see it for yourself. It's going to happen right here in this country. The Pope has declared that this is going to be the New World Order, and the state is going to enforce it. And you're going to see what I've just described to you right here in Main Street, USA. All right? The Pope claims to own all mankind and all their goods. And that, you know, we need to understand that Pope Boniface VIII in his bull Unum Sanctum said that it is absolutely necessary to salvation that every human person be subject to the Roman pontiff, just as we are to be subject to Christ himself. This indeed is Antichrist. Okay, the Roman Catholic, and this is just one example, the Roman Catholic Church, as a matter of institution, violates all 10 of God's commandments. And the commandment forbidding theft, stealing, is a matter of church teaching, Roman Catholic Church dogma. They call it Roman Catholic social doctrine. The papacy is going to determine how society lives, and we're not going to like it. Those of us who believe in Jesus Christ and Him only, and who acknowledge God's right as the lawgiver, those of us who obey His law are going to be grossly offended by this New World Order. And not only are we going to be offended, our consciences are going to dictate that we cry out against this abomination of the earth. And we'll simply be silenced by whatever means necessary. And God told us all these things ahead of time so that we would not be offended at Him. It's not Him who's bringing these abominations upon us. It's the papacy. And we need to prepare our hearts not to place the blame on Christ, as the world so loves to do, to blame God for every wickedness that happens in this world. Now, beginning where we left off yesterday, we're reading on page 70 of the book, the second paragraph from the bottom of the page. It says, popes have long claimed dominion over the world and its peoples. Pope Gregory XI's papal bull in 1372, entitled In Sena Domini, claimed papal dominion over the entire Christian world, secular and religious, that is, church and state, and excommunicated all who failed to obey the popes and to pay them taxes. In Sena Domini was confirmed by subsequent popes, and in 1568, Pope Pius V swore that it was to remain an eternal law. An eternal law. Not a temporary law, an eternal law. Thus claiming By that, the power of God, to pass a law and to pass it in perpetuity. Now, Pope Alexander VI, who reigned from 1492 to 1503, claimed that all undiscovered lands in the world belonged to the Roman Pontiff, the Pope, for him to dispose of as he pleased in the name of Jesus Christ as his vicar. That's right. The Pope claims to be King of Kings, Lord of Lords. Look, there's no one but one in the entire universe that has the claim over the earth and all that is in it, and that is the one who created it. And the Pope has simply stolen Christ's creation. He says, King John II of Portugal was convinced that in his bull, Romanus Pontifex, the Pope had granted all that Christopher Columbus discovered exclusively to him and his country. Ferdinand and Isabella of Spain, however, thought the Pope had given the same lands to them. And in May of 1493, the Spanish-born King Alexander VI issued three bulls. The Spanish-born Pope Alexander VI issued three bulls to settle this dispute. In the name of Christ, who had no place on this earth that he called his own, this incredibly evil Borgia Pope claimed to own the entire world, drew a north-south line down the global map of that day, giving everything on the east side of that line to Portugal and on the west side of the line to Spain. Thus, by papal grant, quote, out of the plenitude of apostolic power, unquote, Africa went to Portugal and the Americas went to Spain. When Portugal, quote, succeeded in reaching India and Malaya, they secured the confirmation of these discoveries from the papacy. There was a condition, of course, quote, to the intent to bring the inhabitants to profess the Catholic faith, unquote. In other words, for them to receive ownership from the Pope of these lands, it came under one condition, that they forcibly convert the inhabitants of these lands to Roman Catholicism. And they did too, by any and every means. They were forcibly converted to Roman Catholicism. It was largely Central and South America which, as a consequence of this unholy alliance between church and state, had Roman Catholicism forced upon them by the sword and remain Catholic to this day. North America, with the exception of Quebec and Louisiana, was spared the dominance of Roman Catholicism because it was settled largely by Protestants. Rome found Protestantism to be a worthy opponent, and for a time we delayed Rome's claim, but only her public claim. Secretly, she has always claimed every portion of the Western Hemisphere. And now, with the strength and influence of Roman Catholicism in our government, all pretense is thrown off now. Protestantism has surrendered, has repudiated the Protestant Reformation in their belief in futurism, a future Antichrist, which literally exonerates the papacy now. And the papacy says, now I have the moral authority to take over this so-called Protestant land, and I can do it without even shedding a drop of blood. The Protestants have simply laid down their Protestantism after Vatican Council II, and they now admit that they're wrong. The Pope is not the Antichrist. The papacy has never been the Antichrist, and that Antichrist is a single individual that comes at the end of time. Now this country is unapologetically Roman Catholic, and Rome has the help and support of all of those in this country who used to call themselves Protestant, who have forgotten what it is to be Protestant. They have forgotten all the history that Dave Hunt is showing us in his book, and they have subjected us all, the last holdouts of Protestantism in this world. They, the ecumenical evangelibellies, have now subjected us, God's true people, to the sword of Rome. And I believe Rome is going to begin killing God's people in this country. They're going to do it with government and Protestant church support. That's why I call this program Inquisition Update. The ecumenical evangeli-belly churches have as much as issued our death warrants. Being totally ignorant of the history of the Roman Catholic Church, they should have been having been knowledgeable about the history of the Roman Catholic Church, they should have never made any concessions to the Roman Catholic Church, but continued to condemn it as Antichrist. But because of their lack of understanding of history, their ignorance of history, their ignorance of Protestantism, they joined the ecumenical bandwagon. They've thrown all their power and strength upon the beast. And now the beast has all power and no restraint. And God's people in this country have but one help. And that's Jesus Christ the righteous, the true owner and creator of this universe, the earth and all that in it is. If there's any hope at all for God's holdouts in this once Protestant land, it is Jesus Christ and Him only. We're going to see every power on this earth allied against us. Our government, our banks, our churches, our hospitals. We're going to be denied the basic elements of life. We're going to be regarded as non-human. History is going to repeat itself. It's imperative that my listeners pay close attention to what Dave Hunt is going to reveal in this book from here on out. And if you missed anything we've already been talking about in this chapter, I implore you to get back into the archives at First Amendment Radio and catch up. Dave continues, he says, nor have the descendants of Aztecs, Incas, Mayas forgotten that Roman Catholic priests, backed by the secular sword, that is, backed by their own governments, gave their ancestors the choice of conversion, which meant only slavery or death. They made such an outcry when Pope John Paul II, in a recent visit to Latin America, proposed elevating Junipero Serra, a major 18th century enforcer of Roman Catholicism among the Indians, to sainthood, that the Pope was forced to hold the ceremony in secret. Yes, one of the Pope's inquisitors, Junipero Serra, was elevated by Antichrist Pope John Paul II to sainthood, but he had to do it in secret. Because South America, which is strictly Roman Catholic, Protestants are only barely tolerated. They're third-class citizens, regarded no more as animals. They have no authority down there, and Rome rules supreme. And Rome's cloak of wool comes off, and she is displayed as the wolf she is, and she elevates to positions of status and honor in the Roman Catholic Church those who oppress God's people. Now people would say, but Tom, the Aztecs, the Incas, the Mayas were not God's people. They were pagans. They were heathens. Don't miss the point. They were forcibly converted to Roman Catholicism. They never heard the gospel of Jesus Christ. Where is our compassion? And history repeated itself once again in South America. You either convert to Roman Catholicism, you acknowledge the temporal and spiritual power of the Pope, you bow down and kiss his ring, you obey his commandments, you eat his Jesus cookie, or you are toast. That's Rome. That's always been Rome. It'll always be Rome. And nowhere more so than here in Romerica. Thanks to the ecumenical evangeli-bellies and Vatican Council II. What a marriage made in perdition. Jesus Christ said, quote, my kingdom is not of this world. Otherwise my servants would fight, unquote. The popes, however, have fought using armies and navies all the armies and the navies of the nations of the world. And they've done so in the name of Jesus Christ. For what? To build a huge earthly kingdom, which is very much of this world. And to amass their earthly empire, they have repeatedly engaged in spiritual fornication with emperors, kings, and princes, claiming to be the bride of Christ, blasphemously claiming to be the bride of Christ. The Roman Catholic Church has been in bed with godless rulers all throughout history, and these adulterous relationships continue to this very day. Rome is in bed with Barack Hussein Obama and our entire government. It's a blasphemous alliance. The Pope ensures our politicians power and influence and fame, while at the same time our slave masters in Washington, D.C. subject us to the arbitrary and antichrist authority of the papacy. And there isn't an American in this country that ought to be surprised at any of this. It is simply history being repeated for the umpteenth time. Anyone knowledgeable of history of the Protestant Reformation and the information we're giving here by Dave Hunt could have predicted what's happening in the United States of America today. This spiritual fornication will be documented later in this book. We'll continue right after these messages. You're listening to Inquisition Update on FirstAmendmentRadio.com.
You're listening to FirstAmendmentRadio.com worldwide. Freedom is never free. We need your support today at FirstAmendmentRadio.com.
I know you all want answers, and believe me, so do I, and I'll do my best to get them.
Have you seen the Left Behind movies? Have you read the Left Behind fictional book series? Not everyone believes Left Behind is true prophecy. Some may even regard as conspiratorial the mainstream re-release of the Left Behind movie with actor Nicolas Cage portraying the main character as an attempt to further reinforce in the minds of all this perception of false prophecy in order to condition the masses for the play about to begin. Because they see the world stage shaping to fulfill what they have been led to believe is sound biblical interpretation, a Left Behind rapture scenario, this false view of prophecy is reinforced in the mind, not only of its adherents, but also includes those who have been merely exposed to the specific media. Is it possible that false prophecy can be fulfilled? The rapture theories have always been in dispute. Pre-trib, mid-trib, and post-trib disputes have risen up in exclusively evangelical circles of recent history, so that when true believers don't suddenly disappear, this element will easily go by the wayside when all see a new Jewish temple begin to be built. Will this be part of the great delusion that will come upon the whole earth? It seems that this great prophetic delusion has already overcome practically the entire American evangelical and Christian world. Get the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. To learn more, visit crosstheborder.org. That's CROSS, crosstheborder.org.
The program you are listening to is 100% sponsored by you, the listener, on this First Amendment Rights Media channel. you will notice that there are few commercials on this radio network. There's a good reason for that. Corporate advertising dollars come with strings that limit program content. So without your help, these programs cannot continue on satellite, internet, or our several affiliates. If you benefit by the educational law programs, we ask you to give. If you are admonished or nurtured by the Bible and ministry programs, we ask you to give. If some voice a cause that you are passionate about, we ask you to give. If you believe in any of these, we ask you to support them as you would a missionary on a continual basis, as if giving a tithe for missionary radio. These programs are not commercially viable and must be supported by those faithful to the cause of truth. Look for the button to sponsor your favorite programs at our listen and schedule pages on the Internet. We will also give you unlimited archive access to all of our programs. We're asking you to give much less than a tithe, so that you may also send support directly to a particular program host, cause, and anywhere else the Spirit may lead you. Do all to the glory of our God and Creator, for His holy nation, the only kingdom that will last forever. Thank you for listening. Since the beginning of time, kings have sought it, nations have fought for it. It has been traded, it has been borrowed, it has been purchased, it has been stolen. There's a reason for it. To secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and to our posterity, invest with the security of gold and silver. Call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188 or visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net. Listen to Financial Survival with your host, Melody Cedarstrom, right here on FirstAmendmentRadio.com at 4 p.m. Eastern or 1 p.m. Pacific Time. Visit DiscountGoldandSilverTrading.net or call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188. Toll free, 1-800-375-4188.
You're listening to FirstAmendmentRadio.com worldwide. Freedom is never free. We need your support today at FirstAmendmentRadio.com.
Welcome back to Inquisition Update. We'll get right back to the book, A Woman Rides a Beast by Dave Hunt. Those who read the Scriptures with an enlightened eye, who are led by the Spirit of God, have the spirit of prophecy, they understand what is described and who is described in Revelation chapter 17. Revelation chapter 17 sees this woman riding the beast. They see it as a church-state union, a global church-state union. And that the woman is not only a church, but she's a city situated on 7 hills. Now, some would argue that it's describing the city of Rome, not the Vatican. Listen to what Dave Hunt says. This portion of the chapter is entitled, Rome equals Vatican. Some may object that it is Rome, and not that small part of it known as Vatican City, which is built on 7 hills, and that the Vatican can hardly be called a quote-unquote great city, as it is described in Revelation chapter 17. Though both objections are true, the words Vatican and Rome are universally used interchangeably. You've heard me refer to Rome constantly here on Inquisition Update, directly implying the Vatican, supposed to be understood. Rome's prelates even use the term Rome to describe their own Vatican, their own city. So it is a normal, universally adopted convention to refer to Vatican City as Rome. Rome does it. The priests do it. Everybody does it. You can refer to Rome as the entire city of Rome, but generally when you're speaking about the Roman Catholic Church, it's also referred to as Rome. But the Vatican is distinctly separate from the rest of the city of Rome. But nonetheless, the Vatican, being the capital of Rome, the powerhouse of Rome, is situated on 7 hills. It fulfills the prophecy in Revelation chapter 17. He says, though both objections are true, the words Vatican and the word Rome are universally used interchangeably. Just as one would refer to Washington and mean the government that runs the United States, so one refers to Rome and means the hierarchy that rules the Roman Catholic Church. Take, for example, a placard carried by a demonstrator outside the November 15th through the 18th, 1993 meeting in Washington, D.C. of the National Conference of Catholic Bishops. Protesting any deviation from the Pope's wishes, it read, quote, Rome's way or the highway, unquote. Obviously, the word Rome, by using the word Rome, it meant the Vatican. Such is the common usage. So closely are Catholicism and Rome linked that the Roman Catholic Church is known as the Roman Catholic Church, the Roman Catholic Church, or simply the Roman Church. Moreover, for more than 1,000 years, the Roman Catholic Church exercised both religious and civil control over the entire city of Rome and its surroundings. Pope Innocent III, who reigned from 1198 to 1216, abolished the secular Roman Senate and placed the administration of Rome directly under his command. The Roman Senate that had governed the city under the Caesars had been known as Curia Romana. In other words, the Roman Curia. That name, according to the Pocket Catholic Dictionary, is now the designation of, quote, the whole ensemble of administrative and judicial offices through which the Pope directs the operations of the Roman Catholic Church, unquote. The Pope's authority even extends to large territories outside Rome acquired in the 18th century. At that time, with the help of a deliberately fraudulent document manufactured for the popes known as the Donation of Constantine, and we covered the Donation of Constantine thoroughly in our reading of the book, The Papacy and the Civil Power by R.W. Thompson, and The Footprints of the Jesuits by R.W. Thompson, and many, many other works that we've read here on Inquisition Update. My listeners should be well acquainted with the Donation of Constantine, and those who aren't simply can Google the term and read it for themselves. It is a known and accepted forgery, but it claims that Constantine, the first Christian emperor, so-called, of the Roman Empire, donated all of his power and authority, his Senate, even the Lateran Church, Vatican City, donated it all to the papacy, and literally made the Pope King of Kings. Okay? It's all a fraud. An admitted fraud, even by Roman Catholic historians. And yet the popes claim this authority, though those forgeries were not forgeries. Despite their own face, they still claim the Donation of Constantine as the basis for the kingly power of the Pope, his temporal power. He says the Pope's authority even extended to large territories outside Rome acquired in the 8th century. At that time, with the help of a deliberately fraudulent document manufactured for the popes known as the Donation of Constantine, Pope Stephen III convinced Pepin, king of the Franks and father of Charlemagne, that territories recently taken by the Lombards from the Byzantines actually had been given to the papacy by the Emperor Constantine. Pepin routed the Lombards and handed to the Pope the keys of some 20 cities, Ravenna, Ancona, Bologna, Ferrara, Jesi, Gubbio, etc., and a huge chunk of land adjoining them along the Adriatic coast. dated the 30th of March of 315 AD, the donation of Constantine declared that Constantine had given these lands, along with Rome and the Lateran Palace, to the popes in perpetuity. In 1440 AD, this document was proved to be a forgery by Lorenzo Valla, a papal aide, and is so recognized by historians today. Yet, allegedly infallible popes continued for centuries to assert that the donation of Constantine was genuine, and on that basis justified their pomp, power, and possessions. Their claims to all lands are based on the donation of Constantine. It's the donation of Constantine that grants the Pope the power, the kingly power, to claim all lands for the Roman Catholic Church. The donation of Constantine is what belied the authority of Christopher Columbus to set the papal flag in this hemisphere and claim it for the popes. A known forgery. And Rome still insists that through Christopher Columbus she has a divine right authority to rule every man, woman, and child in this hemisphere. That every human pontiff must be subject, as a matter of salvation, must be subject to the Roman pontiff. That fraud, the donation of Constantine, is still perpetuated by an inscription in the baptistry of Rome's St. John Lateran, which has never been corrected. Rome still asserts that that accepted lie is the truth. And the world simply lets her get by with it. Protestants have been reduced to silence. Nobody claims that the Pope has no legitimate authority in this hemisphere at all, because the basis of that authority lies in a known and accepted forgery, the donation of Constantine. Where's the Protestant voice in this country when Roman Catholics in government, Congress, the White House, the Supreme Court, demand that this be a Roman Catholic country, that this country must be Roman Catholic, that its laws must conform to Roman Catholic canon law? Where is the Protestant voice that says the donation of Constantine is a forgery? That the Pope's claim as vicar of Christ is an even greater forgery. It's not only a forgery, it's a blasphemy. Abomination of abominations to claim that the Pope is the vicar, the replacement of Christ. Where is the Protestant voice in this country and around the world? He says, thus the papal states were literally stolen by the popes from their rightful owners. The papacy controlled and taxed these territories and derived great wealth from them until 1848. At that time, the Pope, along with the rulers of most of the other divided territories of Italy, was forced to grant his rebellious subjects a constitution. Praise God. In September of 1860, you know why they got their constitution? You know why Italy became united under its own constitution? Because they realized after the Protestant Reformation, even in Italy, Roman Catholic Italy realized the papacy has no legitimate temporal power in the world. No legitimacy at all as a king. Of course, the Protestant Reformer said he has no legitimate authority in the world at all, including spiritual power. He's not the vicar of Jesus Christ. He's the vicar of Satan, and he has no legitimate authority over any of God's house. But even Roman Catholic countries who wished the Pope to remain their spiritual leader stripped him of his temporal power. They united Italy, which was divided in half by the papacy and the papal states. The Pope bleeding and just sucking the lifeblood out of the papal states through taxation and unjust laws and tyranny and oppression. Those people wanted liberty. They wanted a constitution like the Protestant nations did. They didn't need a king to rule over them. They had a king, Victor Emmanuel. They didn't want the Pope anymore. So they stripped him of his temporal power. They elevated Victor Emmanuel, wrote their own constitution, started taking care of their own business. Well, the Pope calls that blasphemy, rebellion. They must be brought back under the Pope's temporal and spiritual power. And the Pope even used foreign armies, the Austrian army. The equivalent of the American army today was Austria at that time. And he just simply commandeered the Austrian army and brought them down to Italy to reestablish the Pope's temporal and spiritual power all over Italy and overthrow Victor Emmanuel and the Constitution. But the people held fast. The people of Italy, the Roman Catholic people of Italy, held fast. But the United States has crumbled like a house of cards. The Protestants, who rejected the spiritual and temporal power of the Pope, have just crumbled like a house of cards. They gave up without a fight. They showed up to the war with a white flag at Vatican Council II. The Roman Catholics of Italy were prepared to shed blood. No such thing here in the United States of America. This once Protestant land, there was no skirmish, nary even a whimper. The Protestants just laid down their arms. They laid down Christ, they laid down the Bible in front of the Pope, and then stepped on him with their feet. That's what Vatican Council II was. That's what they did to this country. Just handed it over, lock, stock, and barrel to the papacy. Are my listeners beginning to comprehend what Vatican Council II was? An unconditional surrender to the biblical, historical, and prophetic Antichrist. We simply surrendered our liberty, our Protestant liberty. We simply surrendered. Christ was ready to fight for us. If we'd have stood up for him and his truth, Christ would have fought for us. But we didn't even beg his help. We just simply laid down and let the papal ship roll right over us. Now the papacy controls not just the card-carrying Catholics of this country, but all the ecumenical evangelibellies. Now they are a political mandate. My listeners write and bellyache about the Patriot Act and about all the presidential directives that have come as a result of Vatican Council II. Oh, yeah. You think it was 9/11 that brought this upon us? Oh, no. It was Vatican Council II that brought this all upon us. 9/11 was just a good excuse to bring it to bear. Rome's been preparing for the overthrow of this country since before this nation was ever founded. Remember, long before the Revolutionary War, it was the popes who planted the papal flag on this continent by their little papal stooge and inquisitor Christopher Columbus. Rome staked her claim to this country long before the era of the Pilgrims. And she's never relinquished her claim. And that's why they assert, without even consulting us, they assert their divine right to rule this country and to implement the Pope's righteousness. And what is that? To destroy the Bible, to destroy Protestantism as heretics, and to claim this land for the Pope and to make it Roman Catholic. And how are they doing that? By uniting this colossus now, this religio-political colossus now that has been created since Vatican Council II. They're not going to take any prisoners. They're not going to take any prisoners. Thus, the Papal States were literally stolen by the popes from their rightful owners. You know, the Pope didn't just steal the Papal States. He stole this whole world. He stole the whole world. It belongs to Christ. God said, the earth is mine and the fullness thereof, but the Pope stole it. He says, thus the Papal States were literally stolen by the popes from their rightful owners. The papacy controlled and taxed these territories and derived great wealth from them until 1848. At that time, the Pope, along with the rulers of most of the other divided territories of Italy, was forced to grant his rebellious subjects a constitution. In September of 1860, over his raging protests, Antichrist Pope Pius IX lost all of the papal states to the new, finally united Kingdom of Italy, which left him, at the time of the First Vatican Council of 1870, still in control of Rome and its surroundings. So when you use the word Rome, it fits the Vatican. Revelation chapter 17 describes Rome. It sits on 7 hills, and it's a direct reference to the Vatican. He says the point is that exactly as John foresaw in his vision, a spiritual entity that claimed a special relationship with Christ and with God became identified with a city that was built on 7 hills. That quote-unquote woman, that city, that mighty city, committed spiritual fornication against Christ, a perverse relationship, unholy intercourse, unlawful intercourse with the earthly rulers, and eventually reigned over them. The Roman Catholic Church has been continuously identified with that city. As, quote, the most definitive Catholic encyclopedia since Vatican Council II declares, quote, hence one understands the central place of Rome in the life of the Church today and the significance of the title Roman Catholic Church, the church that is universal, yet focused upon the ministry of the Bishop of Rome. Since the founding of the church there by St. Peter, Rome has been the center of all Christendom. Rome has been the capital of all Christendom. Rome has been the dictator of all Christendom. And to deny that Rome is not the dictator of the Christendom that is practiced in this country is to express one's complete and total ignorance of the truth. The Pope rules supreme. You think you're sitting in a Protestant church, you better think again. It's not incorrect to say that there are no Protestant churches left in this country. And some people will say, well, Tom, that's just simply not true. I beg my listeners sometime in the near future, you go to YouTube videos, since most people don't like to read books today. Go to YouTube videos on Google and type in Alberto Rivera, Alberto Rivera, common spelling. Alberto Rivera. Did I spell Roberto? Alberto Rivera, Alberto Rivera, Rivera. Alberto Rivera, a reformed Jesuit priest, came to this country. You'll get a list of sermons by Alberto Rivera, the reformed Jesuit priest. Listen to some of those sermons. He'll prove to you that Rome has corrupted all of the Protestant churches in this country. If you think that claim is outrageous, that there are no Protestant churches in this country, just listen to Alberto Rivera's sermons. He was a Jesuit priest. He can show you in detail how the Jesuits have made Catholic churches out of all the Protestant churches. I'll tell you, when I began to comprehend what he said, the hair stood up on the back of my neck. I can't refute a single thing he says. He'll show you how they perverted. He was part of it. He was part of it. It was part of his job to corrupt the Protestant churches and make them Catholic in their teachings and Catholic in their traditions. That was his job. He was qualified to tell the American people how the Jesuits corrupted and made Catholic the Protestant churches in this country. And when you hear it for yourself, you'll say to yourself, as did I, what hope is there in supporting any established church in this country? I tell you what, the message for God's people today is, come out of the churches. Rome owns them, lock, stock, and barrel. And just as you heard on True News this morning, they're preaching about the clergy class. They're preaching about binding and loosing. They're preaching about denying the congregations the wine of communion, just like the Roman Catholic churches. They're not Protestant, they're Catholic. And they've even invaded First Amendment Radio. I am incensed.
The program you are listening to is 100% sponsored by you, the listener, on this First Amendment Rights Media channel. You will notice that there are few commercials on this radio network. There's a good reason for that. Corporate advertising dollars come with strings that limit program content. So without your help, these programs cannot continue on satellite, internet, or our several affiliates. If you benefit by the educational law programs, we ask you to give. If you are admonished or nurtured by the Bible and ministry programs, we ask you to give. If some voice a cause that you are passionate about, we ask you to give. If you believe in any of these, we ask you to support them as you would a missionary on a continual basis, as if giving a tithe for missionary radio. These programs are not commercially viable and must be supported by those faithful to the cause of truth. Look for the button to sponsor your favorite programs at our listen and schedule pages on the internet. We will also give you unlimited archive access to all of our programs. We're asking you to give much less than a tithe so that you may also send support directly to a particular program host, cause, and anywhere else the Spirit may lead you. Do all to the glory of our God and Creator, for His holy nation, the only kingdom that will last forever. Thank you for listening.
Visit crosstheborder.org, CROSS, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of Nicholas Arthur's new book titled When the Third Temple is Built. That's crosstheborder.org. When it comes to prophecy today, much of the evangelical Christian world has their eyes on Israel, waiting and watching to see when the third temple will begin to be built. The plans are drawn. The Jewish people are eager. Most evangelical Christians today believe that the rapture will happen before the third temple is built. Hi, I'm Michael Eugene. I was taught that Daniel's 70th week was in the future. Is that really what the Bible teaches? Have we searched the scriptures and found this to be true? Why is it so important for a re-established Israel to build a third temple in Jerusalem? Is it necessary to build a temple on the same location already occupied by the Dome of the Rock? Is it necessary for sacrifices to take place in the temple on Temple Mount? Is there really a rapture followed by 7 years of tribulation? What is the New Testament temple? Can we identify history and prophecy? Who is the first beast in Revelation chapter 13? Who are the 7 kings in Revelation 17? I have asked all these questions, and I have found Nicholas Arthur's new book, When the Third Temple is Built, answers all these questions and more using Scripture to interpret Scripture. The Bible says that no prophecy of Scripture is of any private interpretation. Nicholas shows us in his new book, When the Third Temple is Built, how the Bible interprets prophecy and not man's private interpretation. Visit crosstheborder.org, C-R-O-S-S, crosstheborder.org to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of Nicholas Arthur's new book titled When the Third Temple is Built. That's crosstheborder.org.